All right, stand up the Garden State. Seton Hall takes down number 7 Texas, and Rutgers pulls the ultimate upset somehow and knocks off number 1 Purdue. First win over a number 1 team in school history. Welcome to the Field of 68 After Dark, the only place devoted to college hoops every single night. I'm Jeff Goodman. Tonight I've got former Clemson sharpshooter Terrence Oglesby and SI's Kevin Sweeney with me. We'll break everything down. It was supposed to be a quiet night, guys, but it is anything but that. Again, Seton Hall gets the win over Texas to start this thing off, and then Rutgers pulls up the huge upset. We'll have a conversation tonight with a National Player of the Year candidate, Johnny Davis from Wisconsin, and we might even get a visit from a guy who right now is laying a spanking on an in-state rival, Iowa State's TJ Otzelberger. But first, let's talk about Rutgers and Purdue, because nobody other than Greg Waddell, our producer for tonight, saw this one coming, right, guys?
No, I certainly didn't see it coming. I thought Purdue just had so many weapons, but you got to give Peichel and his guys credit, Jeff. Like, those dudes guard, especially on the perimeter. They've got a lot of big bodies around the perimeter. They are small inside. That's what kind of made me worry about Rutgers coming in. But, man, when you got a guy like Ron Harper Jr., and he's locked in and focused and engaged not only on scoring but on rebounding, doing some of the other things as well, he's the kind of player that can carry you on a given night, and he showed that tonight. Ended up with 30. And man, that shot, I think I woke up both dogs, my kids, and my wife had to call down to check on me. I'm down in my office right now. So, I mean, what a game. Terrific game. I called it a little too soon. I was like, well, Purdue just has all the answers, but they just didn't have enough time to give a final answer.
Yeah, and listen, this is a Purdue team that, again, had been pretty dominant all year, just took the number 1 spot days ago. And I don't know if it was a little bit of a letdown game. Geo Baker didn't play, Kevin. Everything was lined up. I know it's the rack. I get it, but I don't think anybody thought this was going to happen.
No, I mean, look, it's really hard to win on the road in college basketball tonight. Yet another reminder of that. But, I think at the end of the day, there was nothing on paper that made you think, there wasn't even an indication that Rutgers was starting to turn a corner from this slow start, right? They lost by 35 points to Illinois 6 days ago. They were coming off a UMass loss a week before that, and the week before that, Lafayette, right? Like there wasn't this turning tide for Rutgers where you said, okay, maybe there's an upset here. This was completely out of the blue, and I think it's kind of what makes this sport so great. But it was, just a special game. When you let a team like Rutgers hang around in their home gym, and I think we saw this with Duke and Ohio State. Obviously Rutgers isn't quite as talented as Ohio State, but Duke was the better team. Ohio State just hung in, and then let the crowd carry them across the finish line in the final 10 minutes. I think it was a very similar kind of game script today, where Purdue made that little push, got it to, I think, 8 or 9, but they couldn't put Rutgers away. And once that didn't happen, you started to wonder when Rutgers could make that push and really make things interesting.
So Gonzaga started the year preseason number 1. They looked every bit the part of it early. Smashing Texas and UCLA. There was no doubt. And then they've kind of faltered a little bit lately. Duke gets the number 1 spot. They lose at Ohio State, a few days after playing in Vegas and beating Gonzaga. I'm not sure. I think Ohio State caught them at the right time. And then Purdue gets it, and they lose to a Rutgers team. So I've kind of said this from the get-go. I don't think there was a dominant team, even in the preseason. I didn't look at Gonzaga and say they're so dominant like Baylor was, or even the Zags were a year ago. But does this further illustrate, Terrence, the fact that, listen, maybe there's more than 8 teams or 10 teams that have a chance to win this whole thing?
But it's all matchups and who can win 6 games and who's playing well right then. I think the number 1 concern with Gonzaga, and we all tend to bring them up, is they have trouble with big athletes. I think Drew Timme has showed that whenever they played Duke, and then they struggled again against Alabama. Those guys have really high-level athletic guys, and that worries me when it comes to Gonzaga. Now, are they going to be able to figure it out at the end of the year? Absolutely. What have they made? 6 straight Sweet 16, Sweeney? That's a stat for you to know. I don't know for sure. But I think, they're going to end up figuring it out, but there's not a dominant team per se. But there is one kind of laying in the weeds that not a lot of people are talking about. Baylor is really, really good.
All right. I'm not sure I'm ready to go there yet. Okay.
They're
Like
really
I
good.
like Baylor, but I think they're another one of these teams. I'm putting them in the same realm as, and I'm not even sure if I'm putting them there yet. I want to see them against Villanova. By the way, that was still like my favorite matchup from a couple of years ago. That's when I fell in love with Baylor, was Myrtle Beach, where they beat Villanova in the best game I saw all year in terms of how it was played. The execution, both teams were making shots, but they were guarding. And I remember talking to Scott Drew after that and saying, like, I love this friggin' team. So I like Baylor, but I still need to see them beat a really good team and a really good program. And they get Villanova coming to Waco this weekend.
Yeah, and I'm fully on board with that. But there's a couple of things that make me think like they could be that team. One, they get Sochan, they get Kendall Brown. That's the only team I've ever seen that wins a national championship and gets more athletic. Yeah. Like it's unbelievable what they did. And then last year too, I had some concerns, and I voiced this to you guys on the opening show that we did with all the All-Americans. We put James Akinjo. Who's going to replicate all those assists by Mitchell and Jared Butler? Last year's team averaged 16.9 assists a game. This year's, Jeff, 18.9 assists a game. 2 more full assists per game. That ball's still popping. There's still weapons everywhere. And now they have more than 2 or 3 rim threats. I mean, they're throwing oops to a lot of people, and they just guard at such a high level. And I'm not even mentioning LJ Cryer, who's been really good as well.
Yeah. And again, Scott Drew's just, listen, he's made a believer out of everybody. I mean, if you're not a Scott Drew believer by now, you know what? I don't like you. I'll say it. I don't like you if you don't buy into what Scott Drew is selling right now.
Culture of joy. Culture of joy.
It is the culture of joy. That's what it is. You're like Jay Wright has the culture, but Scott Drew has the culture of joy, and he's always happy. Sweeney, what is there somebody right now that you think is the best team in America, or do we just not have one right now?
I don't think we have one. I think there's this kind of top grouping where, Purdue is, I think, the hardest team to guard in the country because they're so multiple with the ways they can hurt you. I think Gonzaga is probably the most complete team. But like you said, Terrence, obviously they struggle with the big athletes. They've had that issue against Bama, Duke, going back to last season. I think Duke is probably the most talented team in the country, but they're going to be up and down, I think, just because they're playing so many younger guys. And obviously Paolo has been working through the second half struggles and things of that nature. I think Baylor belongs in that category at this point. I think Arizona has a chance to prove that they belong in that category this weekend against Illinois. I think they've looked the part so far, but kind of similar. They haven't really played anyone other than Michigan, who was not in a good place at that point to really judge off them. I think there's 5, 6, 7 teams in that top elite tier that can go, that we can kind of say is a slight cut above the rest, but it feels wide open. I don't think there's one team right now that stands out. I don't necessarily think that Purdue, even before today, was fully there for me. I thought they had earned that number 1 spot. They had earned that AP poll ranking, but I don't think I woke up this morning saying, yeah, Purdue is the clear favorite to win the national title. I don't think we had one before, and I think today illustrated why we don't.
Yeah, you know what? The only thing that worries me about Purdue, like they've got obviously an electric scorer in Jaden Ivey. They've got 2 really good bigs that are unstoppable but can't play together, right? And that does hurt him a little bit, Zach Edey and Trevion Williams. Trevion was, again, very few guys can stop him in the post, but he did have, again, at the end of the game there, a charge that was certainly ill-advised that kind of cost them. What I still worry about is their point guard play. It's solid. It is very solid. And I'm not sure solid is necessarily good enough to win 6 straight games. I like Hunter, and Iowa State ends up winning by 20 in Ames. They are now 9-0. TJ Otzelberger, you're not going to find a better start to your head coaching career at a spot than TJ has had. But to get back to Purdue, am I crazy to worry about their point guard play or no?
What's your concern? Are you wanting more?
Okay. I don't know if they give you enough. And if Jaden Ivey's not having a game, and again, he's still erratic in his decision-making. He's been very good in transition this year, But even the play he made tonight, game on the line, he tried to split those, the trap. And what did he do? It was just, it was kind of a bonehead play. He's super athletic. All he's got to do is jump up and be able to throw a pass to a teammate there. Instead, he gets hit with a walk, or, and he and Trevion both made mistakes at the end of the game, and they could have iced it.
The numbers say that they're going to be fine. I mean, they're averaging 18 assists and 12 turnovers. The numbers say they're going to be fine, but it comes down to end of the game situations. And obviously they're going to learn from this one. Be honest with you, Jeff and Kev, like I have so much faith in Paint that he's going to find ways to kind of overcome some decision-making things, because he's going to put it on himself. And, another thing too is Ivy got that ball in the dead man's corner.
He did.
You just get, like, if you're going to get that ball anywhere on the floor when you're going up against pressure, especially a 1-2, 1-1 or whatever it was, where they're trapping first pass as soon as it gets in, don't get that ball in the dead man's corner, because everybody can converge and it limits your options. So I would imagine that doesn't happen again. I think they have an elite playmaker. I think they have enough shooting around them. I think that was one of the biggest concerns coming in. Brandon Newman and Stefanovic have been really, really good. The team shooting 41% from three. Like, this Purdue team, if you take away, an end of the game decision against a Rutgers team playing at one of the craziest environments in college basketball, and I'm calling it that because they're crazy when Rutgers is 5-4 too. Like, that's a special place. I mean, I was up there calling a radio game when they played Clemson in Big Ten ACC Challenge. And even so, I mean, the place was electric. But I mean, I like this Purdue team. I just feel like there's too many weapons at too many of the most important places on the floor.
I think one thing that I think where I agree with Goodman's point is, and we saw this against Iowa too, when they struggle with the press, Purdue does not have a guy that when it's a late game situation, you just want to get the ball and bounce to him and you trust him to make great decisions, right? Ivy is incredibly explosive, right? What he did in that open floor situation with the windmill dunk, I have not seen from another guy this year in terms of the way he got off the ground. But do you right now trust Jaden Ivey to close out a game? And I'm not quite there yet. And, really 2 games in a row now for Purdue, he's been a little bit shaky in those spots. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's the question that they answer. I think, they've gotten a ton of mileage out of Isaiah Thompson this year as a shooter, and he's really meshed quite well with Ivy. Doesn't need the ball in his hands, kind of blends in, plays defense, makes shots. But again, like, that's not the guy that you're getting the ball into late in the game to go make a play to beat a press. He's not explosive. He's not, creative with the ball. Hunter is a little inconsistent with his ball handling as well. So yeah, I think that's a legitimate question. I think it's the thing that holds them back from being that clear number one right now, because they answer every other question mark, right? With the shooting and the size and the coaching and the top end talent and, everything else you want. But those late game situations, you want that lead guard that you can just trust. And maybe Jaden Ivey will be there by March. Like, I would not be surprised if he is, but right now it's just a little shaky.
So, all right. So we got, Purdue still in the equation, Baylor, Gonzaga, Duke, those 4 for sure.
Yep.
Kansas, that's 5. UCLA. No,
I want to see him with Riley. Because against Gonzaga, that team did not look the part, and Mick said it, he's like, we're not the number 2 team in the country without Cody Riley. I think once they get him fixed, and healthy, it sounds like he's getting closer, then I'll feel a little bit better about him. But I would take Arizona over UCLA.
Arizona, Villanova, you got to have them in the equation.
Yep.
Alabama.
I was about to say, are you about to take that hat off the top shelf there and put on an Alabama hat? Like,
I'll tell you what, I got the Auburn one just because the fans hate me so much, and I had to balance out Alabama a little bit, and obviously Purdue, because if not, Hummel, maybe I should throw them off there today because that was kind of their perch. I don't have a Rutgers hat, guys. I don't have one, so I don't know what to do there. But I think there's probably 10 or so teams right now. And maybe the gap, I just don't think the gap from 1 to 20 or 25 is nearly whoever 25 is right now. 25 to me might be a UConn or somebody like that when they get healthy. And I don't think the gap is as big from 1 to 25 as it usually is. All right. So what does this mean, if anything, for your Rutgers Scarlet Knights, Tio? Like, they were 4-4 going in. I think everybody had left them for dead. Like Sweeney said, their resume was brutal. They lost to a crappy UMass team. Lafayette, I don't even know which one, if it was a Patriot League one or the one in Louisiana.
Patriot League one, yeah.
Patriot League. Fran, you know what? Kudos to Fran O'Hanlon. Love Fran. Good win. But like, does this change anything for you, or is this just a one-off for Rutgers?
I want it to be good because I like the way they play. I really like Peichel. Like, whenever I was watching them in person, Peichel is out there on the floor playing defense. Like, his energy during the course of a game is awesome. This team just can't shoot the ball consistently enough to, I think, thrive in the Big Ten, because the Big Ten, for the most part, now not everybody, is gap heavy, and it's heavily scouted. It's really hard to kind of manufacture some buckets. So you got to have some guys that can hit some shots. I don't know that Rutgers can do that with consistency. Can you do a one-off or maybe have another one at the end of January or another one beginning of February? Yeah, I think they can surprise some people, just because people come to that place and it's a ruckus place. But I think it's going to be difficult for them to generate buckets with consistency. And, Ron Harper is going to be able, if he's, last year you guys were telling me off air, first half of the season he was great. Second half he kind of floundered off. He's going to have to be great all year for this Rutgers team to be just in the ballpark.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I mean, I think, again, listen, they were picked. I think they were picked maybe 8th in the league or something like that, and people thought we had them in our countdown right around 50. So you kind of thought they'd be a fringe tournament team. And if they get going, if they win the Garden State battle against Seton Hall next game, maybe they can pick up some momentum, and those losses are negated a little bit by quality wins. They have to get something going here, though.
The good thing is the UMass game was a road game, so there's a decent chance that sneaks into a Q2 and it doesn't really hurt you as much. The Lafayette one's going to hurt. It's going to sting. I think the only thing I'll add on Rutgers, they got outstanding mileage today out of Mag, especially in the first half, and then Caleb McConnell in the second. Those guys they've really struggled offensively, and both of them were really good today. If they get more consistency there, and I'm skeptical they will, especially with McConnell, just because we haven't seen it for 3 years. Why would it be any different?
He played really well against Clemson 2 games ago.
There you go.
I was shocked because he's kind of on the scouting report. He's shooting like in the teens from a field goal percentage standpoint. And then he came in and played great. Like, he owned the place. So it's like 2 of the last 3 games, that dude's been solid. You got to give him credit. I mean,
Absolutely.
Geo Baker goes down. You need somebody to be an extra guy. And I mean, he stepped up, and sometimes it takes a guy to get hurt to get extended minutes when he hasn't been able to get them. I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm sorry.
You're good, man.
Hey, I'm new. I'm new with Kev. I'm sorry, but you need shooters. And tonight, Rutgers went 7 of 14 from 3. Shooting fixes a lot of those.
Hey, think of how excited, Sweeney, that Clemson players were when T.O. got hurt or got in foul trouble or something. When he went to the bench, they all started licking their chops like, I'm finally going to get a damn shot now.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what happened. We're actually going to have some passes.
It's the same thing with Geo Baker. Same thing with Geo tonight. They're like, all right, you know what? I'm going to get some more shots up. So
hey, they didn't count assists with me. They just counted passes. They said if you get double-digit passes, that's a win. That's a win.
All right. So the game prior that ended just before it in Jersey was Seton Hall, Texas. And that was like the heavyweight bout tonight. That was supposed to be the big boy game. And, Kevin Willard, Chris Beard, Seton Hall's been good this year so far. They've been one of the bigger, in my opinion, one of the biggest surprises. And we had no idea what to expect out of Texas. The only team they played so far, I was at that game at Gonzaga, and they got pretty much run out of Spokane. I mean, they didn't show up. They got dominated. The score wasn't nearly as indicative of the way that game was played. They were never in it. So I'm thinking coming to this game, like, I don't know what to expect out of this Texas team. Marcus Carr has looked lost in this offense. And that my biggest takeaway from this game is that Texas is still a long ways away because they couldn't score. Like, defensively, they're better than I thought they'd be at this point in the season. because they're not super athletic. They don't have a rim protector, but what they do have is Beard's toughness that kind of kept him in the game today. But I worry about Texas, and that's a hell of a win for Seton Hall. Let's start, I guess, with Seton Hall, Sweeney. And is this a team now that you start to say to yourself, all right, you know what? Yeah, they're not in that top 10 group that we've been talking about, but you know what? They're a group that could make some noise in the tournament and finish, maybe even second in the Big East this year.
Yeah, I'm a believer. I think they're a top 20 team. I think they're a team that can come in second in the Big East. I feel like the way they guard you, and they were without Obiagu for most of this game. He only played 5 minutes. And, I think that hurt them dealing with Trey Mitchell, who's such a weapon on the block. But when he's there, it's pretty impossible to score on him because he's protecting the rim. Their guards are all big and physical and tough and good at the point of attack. I think the thing that is the separator for them to be, at the level that they need to be to, compete to be a top 20 team, to have a deep run in the NCAA tournament are, Aiken and Harris off the bench, what they bring scoring the basketball. And Aiken didn't shoot it well today, but, he made the one that mattered. And, I think the clutch factor that he brings is huge. Because look, I think the number one question I come into the year and it hasn't been fully answered yet with Seton Hall was, is Jared Rhoden a good enough scorer to be a number one option on a top 25 team? And he has gotten so much better. Like you think about where Jared Rhoden was as a freshman and sophomore, his growth has been remarkable to watch. But I'm still not sure he's a guy I love in a late game situation, have to go get all the shots. So the weapon that Aiken is, I think helps them. And he's been big in their 2 biggest games of the year, the Michigan game and then tonight against Texas. He's made big shots. So they need that off the bench. But with this defense and the way that how hard these guys play and the experience, they started 4 seniors and a sophomore today. I'm a believer in this Seton Hall team without a doubt.
I will say this. I got nervous whenever Obiagu went down because what happens after that defensively, like Texas started running a lot of pick and rolls and they became like a drop coverage team because Obiagu's so big and protects, they don't have to rotate. To where whenever he went out, they're having to do some different ball screens. So if you notice, like whenever he went out of the game, Texas started running a lot of stuff for Trey Mitchell. Now he was hot before that, I know that, but like they were getting some easier looks because that second half, Willard adjusted, was fantastic. I will say this, I think Seton Hall is the real deal, pending 2 things. Obiagu's fine because I think I have so much respect for him as a rim protector and he changes the game defensively. He has to be some kind of threat offensively, just dunker spot, catch and finish. That's all he has to do, not much. And then Bryce Aiken, he didn't shoot it great tonight, but his change of pace, they have a bunch of big switchable pieces and they're so physical. Bryce Aiken's ability to be really quick with the basketball and get to the lane and then pitch out, I think he adds a different dimension to this team. And man, he was he got wherever he wanted towards the end. And that step back 3, that was like one of those, no, but bucket. I'm not saying anything. Great shot. Get back on D. So that's kind of where I stand with Seton Hall. I think Beard said it after the game. That's a top 15 team. And it's hard for me to argue because
they always say that when they lose too.
Well, I know that.
That's a bunch of bullshit. Like I don't believe anything.
I think it's a top 20 team because it's one of the most.
I don't believe anything a coach says after a game like that because, frankly, if you lose to them, you need them to be a top 15 team. The higher ranked they are, the more it helps your damn numbers.
Yeah, that's true.
In your resume. So and I'm not saying I'm not calling Beard out for being a bullshitter, but they're all bullshitters when it comes to that. So I like their team. Here's the thing for me. I don't think they have a star. Obviously, I know Rhoden's pretty close to it, but like Sweeney said, I'm not sure he's not a great shooter. He's a scorer. They've got a bunch of good players around him. And Bryce Aiken, the key question for me has always been health. Can he stay healthy? He's been hurt. Really, I feel like since I've known him, when he got to Harvard, but he's got big cojones. He's fearless. The biggest thing for me is I trust Kevin Willard.
Yeah.
And here's a guy that was almost fired, after 2015. Think about this. 0 for 5 his first 5 years at Seton Hall and going to the NCAA tournament. Most guys, they don't get year 6. And they had like a come to Jesus meeting, the AD, Willard, and his agent. And the AD at the time decided, like, all right, you know what? And they were super tight, he and Willard. All right, I'm going to give you a shot here. Like, I trust you. I'm going to stick with you. And ever since then, Seton Hall has been a different program. So sometimes it does take time. And I think Willard has also become a much better coach overall. And he's a guy that, listen, guys, when I'm going down the list right now of people to replace Mark Turgeon in College Park, Kevin Willard's at or near the top of the list in terms of people that they can get. You know, I've gone through it. Nate Oates, I put his name out right away. His buyout is too high. Maryland is not going to be able to get Nate Oates. Chris Holtman's not coming from Ohio State. Mike Boynton is another one that I loved from Maryland. Loved him. His buyout's super high as well. So I don't think any of those three are in the equation. And then you go down, and I know I put out that tweet, guys, about Juan Dixon and there being a faction of Maryland supporters that wants Juan Dixon. And Sweeney, you can talk about Juan Dixon a little bit more than most because you spent some time with him. I'm just saying a small faction. I'm not saying that Damon Evans is going to hire Juan Dixon, but he is, listen, as highly regarded of a former player as there is at Maryland, other than like Len Bias, nobody's more revered than Juan Dixon and what he did for that program and bring them a national title. He was what, ACC Player of the Year, most outstanding player. They win it all. He did everything for that program in 2002. So I just think Willard is a guy that I trust. You know, and again, I don't know if they have like elite level talent, but they got enough dudes. They got enough dudes that it wouldn't surprise me if they finish second in the Big East. And I think you could throw a bunch of teams right now in a hat in the Big East other than Villanova, and I don't know who the best team is.
I agree with that. Are we talking about the Big East or are we talking about Willard to Maryland?
Let's go Maryland. I know I like to jump around. I got AD.
That's fine. I just wanted to know which direction to take that.
Yeah, you can go wherever you want, but
well, here's the deal. I would love nothing more than to see Nate Oates at Maryland. Like, I think his style of coaching and his team styles of play would flip the Big Ten on its head.
Yeah. And
the Big Ten wouldn't know what to do with it. And I think it would be awesome to watch. Buyout is obviously an issue. Won't make it happen. I really love Kevin Willard. I think that would be a great hire. You've talked about Ed Cooley. I think he has the personality. You've elaborated on that on several of your shows, Jeff. Like, I think he'd be a good candidate there too. Willard's playing style and the type of kid that he gets, I think would be appreciated a lot at Maryland because they're hard-nosed kids. They play extreme. I mean, I think he would be able to recruit DC some. I mean, am I wrong in assuming so? I think
he would. You know, I just don't know if he's a guy. The only thing I would say for Maryland that I think they would like after going through Turgeon is somebody that's a little bit more out in the community.
Yep.
That's more fan friendly, or I would say, you know, Mark Turgeon was a ball coach and that's all he was.
Mm-hmm.
Willard's got more to him a little bit, but he's not a guy who's going to go out also. And maybe you don't need it at Maryland as much. The other name I'll give you guys, and I actually laughed at Jeff Borzella for putting his story, and I still am laughing until this closes, but it's Bruce Pearl. If Bruce Pearl can somehow get behind this, the NCAA stuff by March, which I don't know if that's going to happen. Now, you got to get a decision by March by the NCAA, and then you got to escape that decision if you're Bruce Pearl, and it's got to fall all on Chuck Person, and he'll have coach's control. But what is coach's control going to mean for Bruce Pearl? That's the big question. But if you guys listen, if there is a coach you can find me that would be better suited for Maryland right now than Bruce Pearl, go ahead, throw him my way. You can't.
There's not one. There's not one. After going down to battle for Atlantis and seeing how many people from Auburn, a football school that has had a hard time generating interest, to get him to College Park, he'd be the match to all that gasoline up there. Like, that would be awesome. What do you think, Kev?
I love Pearl there. If you could make it happen, he's the kind of perfect mix, right? Of the proven name who's went deep in the NCAA tournament, right? That's one of the major sticking points with Turgeon too is he never had that deep run. And I think, quite frankly, that's one of the things that would hold Willard back in this search, right? Is he hasn't had, and I think in 2020 he had an opportunity to do that. COVID hits, he doesn't get a chance with I think probably his best team he's had, and this team will be another opportunity. Pearl is a great name if you can make it happen. I think there's a lot of roadblocks, though, like you said, Goodman, to make that happen. I will say the one other thing we haven't really mentioned on Willard, why I think he's a great candidate for a place like Maryland. Look at the player development in that program at Seton Hall. Everyone has gotten better, like all the way back to the Desi Rodriguez's and Kadeen Carringtons and Angel Delegados to, Jared Roden and Miles Kale and Sandra Mamakashvili and Shavar Reynolds. Like every single guy that they recruit is better as a junior and a senior than they were as a freshman. And they stay for the most part to see that development through. And that's rare at this point. I mean, I can't think of a staff right now off the top of my head that has done a better, consistent job with developing guys than Seton Hall has. So I think when you give him a little bit of gasoline at Maryland, get a slightly higher caliber of kid, better resources, all the things that makes Maryland a great job, the fan support, you can take the recipe he's using at Seton Hall, apply it at Maryland, and I think it would take off. I think there's a reason he hasn't won a ton of, he hasn't won NCAA tournament games at Seton Hall. It's because it's hard to get over that hump and be a top 25 team at Seton Hall. It's hard to get to the point where you're in position to win NCAA tournament games. It is not as hard to do that at Maryland. I think he could build a perennial top 25 team at Maryland and win NCAA tournament games and go on runs. It's a lot easier to do that at Maryland than it is at Seton Hall.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Maryland's a top 20 school. Seton Hall's a really, really tough job. So is Providence for that matter. So I think Willard and Cooley are in kind of similar situations. And both, I think, Willard, I think, would walk to Maryland. Cooley is from Providence, you got to understand. So that's a little bit different for Cooley. He's got a long-term contract he signed a few years ago. So that one, again, but again, I just think Maryland's such a good job. It'd be hard for either one of those guys. The hardest part is, guys don't leave really good high major jobs generally. So people think at Maryland, you're going to be able to like handpick kind of who you want. And like Scott Drew's going to come from Baylor to College Park, Maryland. And like shit just doesn't work that way. And a lot of these guys, what people don't understand is the buyout is everything. Maryland doesn't have SEC money. They're not going to be able to, pay a $10 million buyout to get Nate Oates. And Alabama, they can match, if not exceed, anything that Maryland offers. They'll pay in the 4s. Shit, they pay Nate Oates in the 5s right now if they had to keep him. They got football money that they can use. You know about football money, Terrence.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of it. But my ears started buzzing as soon as you said Bruce Pearl to DC. Like that. Well, again, the attitude.
There's some hurdles.
Motto of both parties.
And he's a Northeast guy. Awesome. I think you have to have a Northeast guy at Maryland. Yep. I really believe that. That's why I said Mike Boynton, the guys we've talked about. Willard's been in New Jersey. Cooley grew up in Providence. Bruce Pearl grew up in Sharon, Massachusetts. So he's a masshole. And massholes generally have thick skin, as you know, with most, not me, but most have thick skin. To me, again, I think Bruce Pearl would be a good one if he can get through it. Anybody else that I haven't mentioned for the Maryland job that you guys think would be really good?
I mean, let me ask you this. Would I guess Passner's not a Northeast guy, is he?
No, Josh.
He just won the ACC. That's the only reason I bring it up. He just won the
I don't
ACC.
like it at all. I'm not going to kill you on this, but I don't like it at all.
No, I don't either. I was trying to rack my brain.
I don't either.
Huh?
There's two guys I would throw out. I don't love them. I think I take Willard over both.
Yeah.
I think Andy Enfield, there's a little bit of a tie there. It's an easier place to win. He has an MBA from Maryland. He's originally from the Northeast. I think that's an interesting name. And then I think Wes Miller is a guy that I would think about. He's having a nice year at Cincinnati. Obviously did at Greensboro. They could double his salary. I think he makes like 1.2 at Cincinnati and again, Cincinnati can go up now. They're going to get Big 12 money, but Maryland could make that work financially. He's a winner. He was on the obviously on a track to get a job like a Maryland. But once North Carolina moves its separate way, now there's an opportunity here. So Cincinnati was smart to move in when they did. I think Wes would be a guy that I would consider, as you go down the list, you say, okay, well, we can't get, some of these top tier names. I'd talk to a guy like Wes Miller and see where's his interest level and, can we make this work? Again, he's not a Northeast guy, but the Carolina ties, that's still a region that you can, that's familiarity with that region of the country that you need for Maryland, I think.
Yeah. And listen, Wes Miller, he played in New Hampton. So he has spent and he's recruited a lot in the Northeast. So I don't hate Wes Miller. I just don't know if Wes Miller is going to want to bounce around too much. Cincy, then he bounces to Maryland. Then if Carolina opens in a few years, which who knows what happens with Hubert Davis. I think he'll be okay because the ACC sucks so bad that I think almost by default, Carolina's going to finish second. I do. I don't think they're that good, but I don't think there's a number 2 team, and they've got more talent than everybody else we're going to talk about that's in the mix for second.
What do you think about infield? What do you think about infield? I thought that was a nice.
Yeah, I don't know. He's weird. He's a little weird. Okay. So I'm not sure how well
but he's a better option than Passner.
He's a better option than Josh. Yeah, I don't think you bring Josh to Maryland. I don't. Again, Josh hasn't done enough. Enfield still had as good of a hire as there was with Papa Mobley, right? Like that smart. I don't begrudge anybody. I actually completely give him as much credit as possible for making that move. It's legal. He got 2 kids out of it, one of which was a lottery pick and killed it last year. The other of which I think you tweeted it, Tio, how underrated Isaiah Mobley's been this year.
He's been terrific.
So
he's been really good. He's been really good.
That's a pretty good job.
Averaging 14-9 and 9.9 boards a game. Like he's been really good. And Southern Cal's 9-0, and we're not really even talking about him at all. And they've got some talent over there with Boogie Ellis is playing with him as well. But Isaiah Mobley shooting 42% from 3. He's good, man.
We were going to get TJ Otzelberger, but it sounds like their concrete building. They can't get on right now with their Wi-Fi down there. So we're not going to get TJ on, but we'll get him in another time. He's rolling. So, but we will talk about let's do a few things here. Let's first. We're exactly 1 month into the season right now. So it's the perfect time, the ideal time to give kind of an early look at a few different things. We're going to talk National Player of the Year. We're going to try to get to biggest surprise and biggest disappointment. So I'm going to start with my National Player of the Year, a guy that's come out of nowhere to take a team that was picked 10th in its league to the one that's now ranked in the top 25. Wisconsin's Johnny Davis. He's been phenomenal thus far. And we got a chance to catch up with Davis earlier today, and here it is. All right, now pleased to welcome in Wisconsin star sophomore Johnny Davis, averaging 20.5 points, 6 rebounds, shooting 40% from 3. And most importantly, his team is undefeated when he takes the court. Johnny, how you doing?
Doing all right, man. A little sore and tired from that comeback win last night, but got to look forward to Saturday.
That was crazy. I mean, that was absolutely insane. You're down, I think 17.5, 20 plus at one point. What was describe the scene? You guys have had a great year, a surprising year so far, but what was the scene like throughout that comeback and when you put Indiana away at the end?
I mean, you know, it was crazy. In the locker room during halftime, we're all telling each other, you know, like, we can do this. We can come back and win this game. We just got to be sound defensively. You know, we got to take the shots that we want on offense. And, you know, I mean, I felt it. I felt us getting closer. You know, we were just chipping away. That lead kept going down and down. And then, you know, once I hit that shot to give us a lead, I kind of figured we were going to win.
Hey, John, I got to ask you this. 7 points a game last year, 20 points a game this year. Obviously, you put a lot of work in on the summer, but you also did the FIBA thing and won a gold medal there.
Yeah.
Was that one of those situations where, you know, you go and you play with a lot of really good players and you realize, hey, man, I belong with this group of guys. Did that confidence carry over from last summer into this season?
It most certainly did. You know, playing with about 30 of the best dudes in the country and then making that final cut, being on the team, you know, I realized what I can do as a player. But also, I knew once I came back, you know, I was going to have to take on that leadership role, be that guy that the team needed. And I think I'm doing an okay job so far.
Johnny, I felt like in Vegas, your team's togetherness, you know, really carried you through some of the adversity, the tough moments when you in those 3 games. And it felt like we saw it again tonight. What did the team's kind of togetherness and culture do for you guys last night during the comeback?
I mean, you know, that's exactly why we came back. And I feel like, you know, when we're more together and in sync, it makes us play better too, especially in the defensive end. You know, we're all getting in the gaps, helping each other, closing out with high hands, you know, knowing our personnel. So, you know, when you're in sync like that as a team and you're all 5 are clicking on the court at the same time, you know, it's pretty tough to score on you.
So, Johnny, I think you might be the only player in college basketball who is part of 2 sets of twins in their family, right? Your brother's on the team as well, Jordan. Mm-hmm. And then you've got, help me out here, Maxwell and Samantha. How old are they?
They are 14.
All right. So what's this like? I mean, 2 sets of twins, the competitiveness, or are you guys super close? Are you fighting? Like, I'm an only child, so I don't know anything about a sibling at all. And you got, again, 2 sets of twins over there.
Yeah, when me and Jordan were about their age, we were always fighting. You know, they had to get us both the same thing, but you know, maybe one of us liked the other better. So I mean, you know, there's a lot of fights, especially when we play one-on-one. We are really competitive with each other. I feel like that's why, you know, we're both at the level we are, is because we just push each other to go harder. Maxwell and Samantha, I mean, they're pretty much the same thing, but you know, Samantha's a girl, Maxwell's a guy, so. You know, they're close, but like they don't really be competing and all that, because Maxwell, I mean, you know, he's been doing his fair share of working out. He's getting a little bigger. But it's great having 2 sets of twins. You know, it's something that doesn't commonly happen. But, you know, it's great because Samantha's the older one, so I feel like me and her click a little bit more. And Maxwell's younger than her, so him and Jordan are, you know, on the same page a little bit of being the younger one of the twins.
Well, listen, we appreciate you coming on, Johnny. Really do. Great start to the season again. Love the fact that undefeated with you in the lineup right now. Heck of a win last night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Appreciate you for having me.
Gotcha. Welcome back. My name's Terrence Oglesby. Back here, Field is 68 After Dark. That was Johnny Davis, Wisconsin superstar. Jeff, he wasn't just your National Player of the Year pick for the first month. He was mine too. And he has made Wisconsin watchable. I'm just going to say it like that. He has made Wisconsin watchable. Everybody loves Brad Davison. You either completely love him or completely hate him. But I don't see how in the world you could hate Johnny Davis, man. With him on the floor, Wisconsin's 8-0. And that's pretty much all you need to say. He's averaging over 20 points a game, 6 boards, and he gives that team that usually plays at a snail's pace a go-to scorer with some really good athleticism. And you heard me ask him in the interview, man, he plays with about as good a balance with as good balance as anybody in the country. He's a pure.
Does he remind you of anybody, Tio? Does he remind you his game of anybody? He's smooth, but he's more athletic. He's very sneaky athletic.
Yeah, he had a couple of dunks that were just absurd. Right off the top of my head, and he's got good size. I get scared to compare guys to like pros because I feel like that puts so much stress on kids. I'm not sure he shoots it well enough, but the way he moves and gets to spots, is Paul George a terrible comparison? Just getting downhill quick. Now,
Yeah. I mean, he's smooth like that.
Yes,
He's
smooth
not
like
as
that.
long and
No.
not obviously the defender Paul George is. I don't know how good he was at Fresno, whether he could guard at all, but I don't think anybody watched him at Fresno.
I mean, more so how he gets downhill.
Yeah.
I mean, his initial burst to get there.
Yep.
And once he gets there, he doesn't finish like him because he's so strong in his legs. Like he sticks his landing, he turns around, he moves, he hits so many tough shots. And in an era, guys, like where the 3-pointer is so important, that dude takes so many mid-range jump shots.
Yeah.
And he makes a pretty good percentage. I mean, she's about 46% all encompassing, but he is like I said, he's made Wisconsin very watchable.
I think the other thing
Sweeney, who do you got?
Man, I did not come into this thinking I was picking Johnny Davis. You know, when you said, give me a national player of the year, I was like, it's not Davis, is it? I looked through and I was like, it's not Paolo. It's not Timmy. It's not either of the Purdue bigs. I think it's Johnny Davis through a month. And again, this is an open race. I think guys are.
There's only two. I think you forgot the other guy. I think you forgot. It's to me, 2 Big Ten guys. And I think it's Johnny Davis or EJ Liddell.
Yeah. Liddell and Keegan Murray entering today. Keegan Murray was in that mix, not after tonight. And Liddell has been great, but Wisconsin been the better basketball team. I think that's the leaner. I think the thing that has stood out to me, and I saw Davis up close and personal in Vegas for 3 days of the Maui Invitational. He has had big shots and big performances in every big game. He had 30 against Houston. He dominated the first half and then made the clutch shots when they needed it late. He had 20 more against St. Mary's. He had 25 in a huge rivalry game last weekend against Marquette. Who hits the big 3 last night to win them that game? Johnny Davis, right? Like this kid is clutch. He is unbelievably skilled. I'll say on his game, I think the thing that makes him so good in the mid-range, he has a high release point and he gets off the ground. Like he is explosive with his legs. He's so strong down there that he gets up off the ground. So even though he's 6'5", it's like he's 6'9", because between the release point and getting the extra burst, I mean, he's impossible to guard in those mid-range spots. So I love Davis, man. He has made a believer and a fan out of me in the first month of the season, more so than I expected. I was a big fan of his last year. I thought he had a chance to be a really special player. I did not think he would be this good this fast.
The only other guy that I want to mention that I think you could put in the conversation is Ochai from Kansas. I think he's a guy that's got to be – he might not be – and I think, unfortunately, his game isn't, flashy enough sometimes.
That's right.
So, but he's gotten better at that. He's gotten better at putting on the floor. Normally, he was just kind of a 3-point shooter, one-dimensional, but his game's gotten better, and defensively, he's pretty good. So I would say Ochai Agbaji is another one from Kansas that has to be in the conversation. And you mentioned Paolo and Timmy. They're in there too, but right now, I honestly, Johnny Davis, I think we just talked to the National Player of the Year frontrunner, Johnny Davis. Isn't that crazy? Because none of us, I mean, what did we think Johnny Davis was going to do this year? Average 12 a game?
Something like that. Well, how many guys have gone and played in that FIBA Worlds and then come back and had a great year? Yeah. Because, man, you get to play against that level of competition every day. What is it, for a month training camp? That's the best.
He averaged 4 a game. He only played 12 minutes a game in that.
It's greatness by association.
Yeah.
There's just so many guys that they play against. And then once you get the confidence, you're thinking, man, I belong. Man, guys just take off. I do think Ochai Agbaji, he's almost so smooth it's to his own detriment. Does that make sense?
Yes. And his game, he doesn't talk at all. There's nothing about he'll dunk on somebody or whatever, and then he comes back down the other end. He's too nice a kid. And Bill Self said that to me earlier this year. It's he needed him to be a little meaner, a little tougher, more of an alpha dog, and he's gotten that this year.
Yeah, he was mean against Michigan State. I will say that.
All right, let's move on. Biggest surprise. Sweeney, I'll let you go first on biggest surprise. Who you got?
I mean, I think it has to be Iowa State. I mean, to be 9-0, to blow out Iowa tonight, they have a resume. This is not a soft 9-0 that they've
not more.
No, I mean, with the 2 wins in New York City and then the road win at Creighton, we don't know how great Creighton is. We don't know how great Iowa is at this point, but at some point you've won them all. That means something. And the job that Otzelberger's done, I think the thing that really stands out for me with them is their defense, right? I mean, you can talk about Brockington, who was awesome today. You talk about Kalstrew's had some huge moments. The freshman Hunter has been fantastic at point guard, but they really guard you. They force turnovers. They're really difficult at the rim because the Kansas transfer Anaruna and George Condit are two guys at the rim that make it difficult to score up there. So they're just really well built. It's something Otzelberger has never really been known for his defense at his previous spots. If you think back to the South Dakota State teams that he had, it was how do you stop these guys? But we're going to put 80 on you. They have this unbelievable defense this year, and I give them a lot of credit. I mean, they're forcing turnovers as well as anybody. They're tough to score on at the rim, and then they've got these veteran guards who go make plays, and a freshman in Hunter who's one of the better in the country. So they're a complete basketball team. They look like an NCAA tournament team. They look right now like a top 25 team. I think maybe that comes back down to earth at some point. But, I think they're the biggest surprise. And honestly, I think Otzelberger would belong in the conversation for National Coach of the Year right now. Oh, certainly. Yeah. I think you could make him favorite. He's been awesome.
Yeah, like who's done a better job? What were they picked, 9th or 10th?
I think they might have been picked 10th.
I think they were picked 9th ahead of Kansas State.
Maybe. I mean, you can flip a coin between those two, and now he's got them in a position where all they got to do is go. I think they can finish 2 games under 500 in the Big 12, and there's still probably a lock to get in the NCAA tournament at the end of the year. Terrence, anybody else? I mean, does Iowa State head the list?
I mean, we talked about teams. Iowa State's the team. I mean, this team didn't win a conference game last year, but I'm going to go with a player. We had him last time I was on with you, Jeff. Darian Sebron has taken his game to the next level. Last year, he averaged 5 points a game. And this year, he's bringing the ball up and averaging, 20 and 11. It's like, where does this come from? He's 2-time ACC Player of the Week already. We're a month in. I mean, he's definitely in the running for Conference Player of the Year. I wouldn't say, National Player of the Year, but for the ACC, that's a little bit down. You heard that. A lot down. Yeah,
don't say a little. Down. You could say a lot. It sucks.
You said
comparatively speaking. Listen, all I'll say is it sucks comparatively speaking to what we usually expect out of the ACC. How's that? Is that fair?
You're absolutely right. It just hasn't been very good in the non-con, and it hurts my feelings. But Darian Sebron, I mean, he has been so good.
Yeah.
And he's doing everything for him. And they've struggled to have a slasher that can get all the way to the rim. And he's still getting in there and kicking out. I mean, his game has really developed. He's got good size. He is just taking the next step. So I would say that's a big surprise for me, because I think a lot of guys thought, Jericho Helms would be the guy. He's turned into the guys for NC State.
Yeah. Listen, for me, it's Iowa State. I don't think you can go anywhere else. 9-0. Again, they pound their in-state rival tonight. They beat Xavier, albeit without Fremantle. They beat Memphis, albeit they're a train wreck right now. They win at Creighton, which I know they're young, but that was kind of listen, TJ Otzelberger against Greg McDermott. That one was a fun one. I kind of wish I was there for that one, because they're super tight. And obviously TJ kind of, got us started Iowa State with Mac. But he's done a great job with, like Sweeney said, with transfers, with Hunter, has been really good. But Brockington, give us the quick Cliff Notes version of the Brockington story against Sweeney.
So Brockington was committed and signed to NJIT. He backs out in April, says he's going to do a prep year. Late in the summer, he decides he's going to go to Bonaventure that year because he kind of blew up over the summer. Shows up Bonaventure, averages 4 points a game, transfers, sits out a year at Penn State. His first year at Penn State is the year that Penn State's going to make the NCAA tournament, then COVID cancels it. He then deals with all the Pat Chambers issues in that summer that blow up, and Chambers eventually has to step away and is done at Penn State. So he goes through a COVID season without a head coach, basically all of last year. He goes in the portal. He's like, where am I going to go? He goes to a place that went 2-22 last year with a new coach. And now he is balling out. I mean, he looks like an all-conference guy. This is a crazy, crazy story, and good for him. It's been a fun journey to watch him kind of continue to get better every year.
29 points
is a virtue.
29 points, 10 rebounds. 29 points, 10 rebounds. And Keegan Murray, is 4 for 17 on the night. And I don't think he got his first field goal until like midway through the second half. So Iowa State's been tremendous. We'll see if they can keep it up. They don't even have to keep it up. They got to go 500 the rest of the way, and they'll be just fine. All right, let's end on a sour note. We got a few minutes here left. Let's end with our disappointments. And again, the qualifications for this are whatever you want it to be. It can be a player, it can be a team, it can be a league, Terrence, if you want to pick the ACC, which I know you will not. It can be a media member. It could be, listen, your boss, Rob Doster. If you want to throw him into the bus, you absolutely could do that.
I could, and I'm going to. The most disappointing thing to me so far this year, boys, is going to Forlini's, one of the greatest Italian restaurants I've ever been to in my life, and listening to Rob Doster try to barter back and forth with this waiter, who was a superb waiter. Doster's in this place trying to get a box of $12 wine, trying to negotiate his way down. Disappointing on all levels. There's my
unbelievable. Unbelievable that I mean, again, no feel for the restaurant that you are in. You know, you're in a great Italian spot in Lower Manhattan. You know, incredible food, incredible wine, and this dude's trying to get Sweeney a $12 bottle of wine. I mean, how about that? Box of wine. Just pathetic.
Ridiculous.
Pathetic.
We should end the show here. We don't need to talk about the actually important.
That's right. Just we one of these days we'll just do a Doster. I mean, we can't do a Doster roast without Hummel. That's the thing. I mean, you can't do it, and we probably need Doster's wife too. Because I'm sure she would love to jump in on the action.
I thought you were going to say, because I'm sure she's disappointed too.
Oh, I mean, that is true.
It was going to go next one. I felt like we were going all the way there. Oh, man. Because I'm sure she's disappointed.
Yes, probably accurate. All right, Sweeney, what do you got?
I think Memphis, right? I mean, it's dysfunctional right now. I thought that a lot of the issues that Penny had the last couple of years would be kind of mitigated by having more talent. Somehow they've, I think, gotten worse because they don't have guys that are as bought into him right now. They've got chemistry issues. They've got on-court issues. They've got, I mean, everything that could possibly be going wrong right now is going wrong. I think they will turn it around. It's a question of when. And with the AAC schedule, I mean, they better do this quick because they can't afford much more leeway to get even into the NCAA tournament, which is the bare minimum of what you have to do for this not to be a complete and utter disaster.
Yeah, listen, Memphis is certainly in the equation for biggest disappointment. How can they not be, right? I mean, again, you had high expectations. I'm going to go with an entire state, boys. I'm going with the state of Oregon. That's how disappointing. Look at it. The Oregon Ducks. Everybody had in their top 20 because it's one of those things you just do with Dane Altman. You throw him in the preseason top 20 and you say, like, I don't care who he has, but he's going to figure it out. Well, they're 4-4 and they're 132 in the net right now. Oregon State, Wayne Tinkle, after taking that team deep in the tournament, the biggest surprise of the NCAA tournament last year, getting an extension, 1-8, and they're 262 in the net. Then you go down to Portland. Portland's 233 in the net. Portland State, 1-4, 316 in the net. The basketball in the state of Oregon right now absolutely stinks. And you could probably even take that to the NBA right now with CJ McCollum, good health to him. Let's hope he recovers quickly. But the Trailblazers haven't exactly lit the world on fire as well. So I'm going with the state of Oregon. It's been absolutely disastrous leading with the Oregon Ducks. Well, listen, appreciate everybody joining us. As always, Field of 68's After Dark. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube After Dark channel. All right. And also, if you want to get your gear like I have, like Sweeney has, fieldof68apparel.com. Again, fieldov68apparel.com. We'll see you Saturday night. No show tomorrow night. The only game of any value. Well, not any value. I shouldn't say that. But Memphis plays Murray State. So it could get worse for Penny Hardaway and the Memphis Tigers. So check that out. We'll see you Saturday night. Terrence Oglesby, Kevin Sweeney, thanks. I'm Jeff